The biggest Bitcoin scandal in history, I'm not even kidding when I say that, quietly went unnoticed. The Strategic Bitcoin Reserve executive order that Donald Trump signed on March 5th ordered all of the US government agencies to give us a full audit of how much Bitcoin the US Treasury holds within 30 days. Well, it's been 35 days since the executive order was signed, and we haven't heard a single thing. If you thought that the 50-year Fort Knox mystery was suspicious, what if America really doesn't have the 200,000 Bitcoin that they say they had? Well, if you think this sounds absolutely crazy or like a Twitter rumor or perhaps like a YouTube title, we're not the only ones thinking this. Senator Lummis was having these exact thoughts. In fact, we have the clip. We'll play it for you guys, and then we'll dive deep into this crazy, crazy story. In fact, when me and Opti were writing this morning, like we couldn't believe it. We were thinking about it. We're like, yo, are we actually good journalists? Anyways, let's check out the clip.
We think the United States has held about 200,000 Bitcoin in asset forfeiture. What we don't know is how much of that the Biden administration was selling right before the Trump administration took office. So we have inquiries to the U.S. Marshal Service. I have talked to Pam Bondi about it. We are trying to find.
So, I mean, sounds absolutely crazy. By the way, joining me on the show today, of course, we have my legendary co-host who's always optimistic, Optimus Fields, and the creator of UTX Oracle. We have Steve in the house. So again, what are we talking about? This is crazy. What do you mean you don't know where the Bitcoin is? Like, if you compare and contrast this with El Salvador's Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, it's completely public. They publish their address. Anyone could see it for the world to see. This is some of the benefits of Bitcoin, is that anybody could audit. It's an open ledger. Anyone could see if that address has the amount of Bitcoin that address says it does. So check this out. The El Salvador Reserve's public. We know that they have 6,143 Bitcoin. We know exactly how much Bitcoin they have, and we know how much they've been accumulating every single day. So when Nayib Bukele and the IMF got into a spat, basically, the IMF was saying El Salvador can't acquire Bitcoin. Nayib Bukele says, you know what? We're going to keep going. You don't have to trust us. Check out our public reserve. You could see that we're going to keep going, right? A very, very powerful move. Now, that's in stark contrast with how the United States reserves work. We have to take for word the U.S. government that Fort Knox has the gold that it says it does. We have to take them at their word that they do have this 200,000 Bitcoin that they say they do. But they can't even account for it. Mind you, this isn't just like a Bitcoin problem. The Pentagon has failed like 6 audits in a row, and you're talking about billions and billions of dollars that are completely unaccounted for. Look at all the things that Doge uncovered. So forgive me if I don't trust you, bro. You don't really have a good track record of trust me, bro. It's kind of like trust me, bro, and then don't get upset that you're not trusting me, bro, type of situation. So check out this headline. U.S. Marshal Service can't say how much crypto it holds, complicating Bitcoin reserve plan. You heard Senator Lummis in the beginning that she believes that the Biden administration was potentially selling Bitcoin because they knew that the Trump administration was going into power, and the Trump administration had every intention of making Bitcoin a strategic reserve. So check out this headline. U.S. agencies must reveal Bitcoin and crypto holdings by April 5th. It has been nearly a month since U.S. President Donald Trump signed an executive order on March 6th to establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve and a digital asset stockpile. The order called for the creation of 2 strategic crypto reserves with digital assets seized by authorities as part of criminal or civil asset forfeiture proceedings. As per the order, all federal agencies are required to disclose their holdings of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies to the Secretary of Treasury within 30 days. It means that the Treasury Department and other federal agencies of the U.S. government will disclose their digital asset holdings, including Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, to the Treasury Secretary on April 5th. Guess what? It's April 11th. It's been 6 days. We haven't heard a peep. We haven't heard anything. We don't know, right? So it's not rocket science. Connect the two. right? So if there was speculation, not by us, by a U.S. Senator Cynthia Lummis, the Bitcoin senator, she's absolutely awesome. If she's basically saying, look, we suspect they're selling Bitcoin, all the agencies were essentially ordered to report how much Bitcoin the U.S. government has. It's 6 days later, we still have no idea how much Bitcoin the U.S. government has. So, and remember, it was quite interesting. All that sell pressure that was happening, the last 6 months and different places. Like we knew when Germany sold their Bitcoin and we took quite a dump. We had no idea what was happening behind the scenes. And even they have no idea, how much Bitcoin you have. I mean, it's not difficult to see how much Bitcoin you have. It really isn't. So were they selling it? I don't know. Here's the CEO of BTC Inc., the CEO of Bitcoin Magazine. He says, what would really add to the vibes right now? The results of Americans' Bitcoin audit. Again, we don't know where it is. We don't know it. But this leads me to connect this to another story that we talked about. I think it was yesterday during the news segment regarding the Coinbase stuff. So what am I talking about? BlackRock decided to use a new custodian. They are, I guess, diversifying custodians. So they were only relying on Coinbase before, and they announced that, hey, we're going to use another custodian. Now, what's really interesting about the BlackRock stuff, and we covered it on yesterday's show, is that there was a lot of rumors regarding quote unquote paper Bitcoin. So Coinbase was essentially accused of potentially selling Bitcoin to BlackRock. That's paper. They don't actually have that Bitcoin. They're just selling an IOU to it, paper Bitcoin. And this made quite a stir on Bitcoin Twitter to the point that BlackRock actually had to amend their agreement with Coinbase. And a lot of people were basically saying it was an unfounded conspiracy theory. But guess what? 6 months later, BlackRock is like, you know what? We're going to have multiple custodians. Now, this leads me to, we don't have to live in a trust me, bro situation, even with the US government. We should demand that they follow in the footsteps of Bitcoin country, which is El Salvador. Bitcoin country has all of the reserves completely public. And the reason that is so important is because it's extremely difficult for the government to do something with your money, because technically it's a government by the people, for the people. It's your money if there's a lot of people looking, right? And this is what transparency is all about. We don't have to live under a trust me, bro model now that we have the technology that allows a don't trust me, bro, verify model. So yeah, I mean, very interesting times. It's been 6 days. We should have those numbers. We should know how much Bitcoin exactly the US government has. The executive order was for April 5th. It is now April 11th. We haven't heard a peep. Nothing. Zero. Nada. It's not there. And that is interesting to say the least. And I don't know what's a bigger scandal, right? That they have less Bitcoin than they said they would, or that they were selling Bitcoin after they knew Trump won the election because they knew that Trump had no intention of selling that Bitcoin because he wanted to make it part of the strategic Bitcoin reserve. I don't know what would be a bigger scandal. And then that leads me to, listen, if El Salvador could do it, the US should be able to do it, right? There's absolutely no excuse unless you just don't like Bitcoin. Unless if you're against Bitcoin, you're against freedom, right? It's as simple as that. Bitcoin exposes incentives. This situation is no different. I'm positive the Trump administration is going to announce it, but it is very curious to me that we're 6 days late and we still have no idea how much the US government, which is accountable to the people, has on behalf of the people. Anyways, Opti, someone in the chat, are you suggesting that they lied to us? I'm not suggesting that. I'm just putting the pieces together and you guys are making your own conclusions. You guys are watching Simply Bitcoin Live. Smash that like button if you guys are enjoying today's show. I'm joined, of course, here with my legendary co-host, Optimus Fields, and Steve. Steve is the creator of UTX Oracle. We're going to be talking about that during the culture segment. But before we get Steve's thoughts, Opti, I mean, we were crafting this morning for a while. We were crafting this story in the morning for a while, and we're like, oh my God, like, are we journalists? Because I think we found something. Opti, what's your take?
Yeah, well, some days we're not just propagandists. We might be journalists. Maybe we're not credentialized.
No, I'm not even going to allow you. I'm not even going to allow you to call us propagandists, because like there's a lot of things that the legacy media has said over the last 10 years. I don't care how much you call yourself a journalist. That was just a flat out false narrative. So no, I don't. You can't call us propagandists, man. Like, if anything, the legacy media is propagandists. All we're doing is reporting the news from the Bitcoiners' perspective. Opti.
You know, I say that lovingly, Nico. You know I'm trolling when I say that. But anyways, getting back to the story here. If this is the case, like Senator Lummis was saying, if Joe Biden's last, middle finger to the U.S. was selling all of their Bitcoin, on the one hand, it would almost be like poetic. Like, I'm not going to lie. It's kind of like, yeah, of course he would do that. On the other hand, it would kind of also be like a good thing for all of us Bitcoiners, especially all the people that are like, I don't want the government to own Bitcoin. They sell 200 Bitcoin. That would probably explain why the price is where it is right now, if they did dump all of that Bitcoin. Now, on the flip side, I was kind of trolling yesterday. Of course, the macro markets right now are in meltdown. There's a lot of, we're all macro experts now because we have to be. And it looks like, China is dumping treasuries and potentially buying gold. So I was trolling, hey, look, China's stacking gold. It would be awesome if the U.S. announces that they are buying Bitcoin. Now, if this is the case and China is stacking gold and they actually hold their Bitcoin, and we have no gold in Fort Knox and we have no Bitcoin, as an American, this would be very bad. Obviously, I want to stay ahead here, but we're seeing all kinds of crazy stuff. And if this is the case, it is very interesting that we don't have an audit here. Maybe they're using this global market meltdown. Like, that's the main concern, being kind of lenient here. That's probably the main concern here. But it is interesting. We haven't heard anything. You'd think by now we would have heard something. The deadline was, I think, what was it? Was that Sunday? Or we should have heard something by Monday. We haven't heard anything yet. I'll be a little lenient considering like the whole global macro markets are blowing up right now and they're very concerned with bonds. But if we don't hear something soon, that is not a good sign. Now, maybe, again, being kind of gracious here, maybe this is an internal memo and they have that information, but it does sound like it was going to be public. So again, if they've sold all that Bitcoin or they don't have as much Bitcoin as they have, that probably would explain the price where we're at, and it would not be good for the narrative of the U.S. becoming the Bitcoin superpower, because now China has more Bitcoin than us, and I can already hear the FUD stories coming out. China runs Bitcoin, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So no case is good here unless we actually have all the Bitcoin we claim we have. So it's going to get crazy with the FUD narratives here. But anyways, I've been rambling enough. Let's pass it over to Simple Steve.
I kind of love this story, to be honest. I'd kind of love it if the U.S. didn't actually have that Bitcoin. I mean, it highlights the problem of it's hard for a large scale institution to custody Bitcoin because someone has to have the keys. So, I mean, it's not just the government. Any big company is going to have trouble proving that they have the Bitcoin that they say they have. Nacho keys, nacho cheese. I mean, I love it. It's hard for big institutions to hold Bitcoin, and that is a feature, not a bug.
100%.
And also just jumping in here, it would be, I mean, on the one hand, they're selling Bitcoin that was seized, but it would be kind of fitting if they did dump all that Bitcoin back into the market, and then, the people can acquire that much Bitcoin again. There's good sides on all of this, but yeah, I also kind of love this story, but the narrative is going to be bad either way.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Opti. Like, they're the blessing in disguise. Look, I'll go out on a limb. There's no way that this is verifiable, but I'll go out on a limb and I'll say that I don't think they have as much Bitcoin today than they did before the rumors started, going around that the previous administration was, essentially selling Bitcoin before Trump got into office. So I'll say that. And I think the silver lining, to add to Opti's point, is, when a government sells their Bitcoin, they could, number one, they could only do it once. And number two, they're selling it back to at least a percentage as individuals, right? So that's a good thing and not a bad thing, in my opinion. So there is a silver lining to this. But yeah, I mean, what a scandal would that be? That would be a huge scandal. But I mean, there's been so many scandals the last, 2-3 years in American politics that from a Bitcoiner's perspective, this would be the biggest scandal. But like from the general events that have happened, it's it's not that big of a deal, I would say, in the grand scheme of things.
One last thing, as a Bitcoiner, would we be surprised of government incompetence of not being able to hold the Bitcoin? It's just like, of course, this is what happens. Like, this is par for the course.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Well, guys, it's going to be an incredible show. We have tons of content for you guys lined up. And of course, we have a special guest. We have Steve. Steve is the creator of UTX Oracle. So we're going to be talking about that very soon. And I have a clip of you guys from the new administration, from especially the name of the position is Executive Director of the President's Council of Advisors on Digital Assets. It's part of the new administration's move to create the strategic Bitcoin reserve. Bo Hines, we have a clip of him basically saying that the administration has every intention of acquiring more Bitcoin. So it's not just about sitting on the Bitcoin that they don't know how much they have. It's also with the intention of buying more Bitcoin as well. Again, that's very positive from a number go up perspective. Then also some Trump news as well. Trump signs bill to nullify expanded IRS crypto broker rules. So we'll jump into that. And then we're going to be talking about essentially if the time allows, this whole tariff thing and the whole Doge thing, and the whole nothing stops this train, story by Lynn Alden. And we're going to be essentially talking about even with Doge, even with the best intention, the fact is that the US government is spending $2 trillion every single year, more than it collects in tax revenue. And that is completely unsustainable. The interest on the debt alone is $1 trillion. That's 1 trillion with a T. That is just to give you guys a perspective of how much money that is. The total GDP of El Salvador is 32 billion with a B, right? The interest on the debt is 1 trillion with a T, right? I don't know what 1 trillion, I don't know what 32 billion divided by 1 trillion is, but let's just say it's an enormous amount of money. And of course, this is completely unsustainable. By 2030, the interest payments alone are going to surpass the defense spending budget for the entire year. It is ridiculous. So you're seeing essentially a slow motion crash, in my opinion. And you already have a lifeboat. And of course, that lifeboat is Bitcoin. Need liquidity without having to sell your Bitcoin? For more than 6 years now, Ledn has been the trusted choice for Bitcoin-backed lending with transparency, security, and trust at their core. I absolutely love these guys. And I personally not only have an account with them, but also a loan. And some of the key features that I love about Ledn is the fact that there are no monthly payments. You pay at the end of the term. You also have the ability to roll over the loan as well, and you can pay it back whenever you want. Essentially what they do is that they help their clients unlock the liquidity of their BTC, allowing you to HODL while still accessing the wealth of your Bitcoin. They've been battle tested with their focus on transparency, security, and trust, allowing them to build a proven track record of client success and security, helping tens of thousands of clients harness the value of their digital assets with confidence and peace of mind. Learn more about what your BTC can do for you today. Simply Bitcoin viewers get 0.25% off their first loan by using the link in the video/podcast description. What are you waiting for? Head over to ledn.io today.